Right, what we're going to do now is we're going to tackle the backlight issue. So here's our display as it was before. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's try and get this right. Excuse the clunky work, I'm first time doing this kind of thing. So what we've got here on the back, so our backlight is here, and these are obviously our data and power for the actual display driver itself. Yeah, the W-30 uses a Sharp LM 24014, so it's 240 by 64 pixels. On here, there's all our connections there. I don't know if you can see those. Solder connections, 1 through to 20 for our digital input, etc, etc, etc. If you were changing out the display for a different type, you would have to desolder this and solder it all back into there. Yeah. Be careful with this. It looks like glass, it's actually plastic, so be careful with any heat or what you lay it down on. Obviously make sure that you put it down on a soft surface because it will scratch. So on this end, can you see here? Let's have a look, getting a bit closer. In the end there, oh, it's probably going out of focus. So in the end there, you can see the foil, the EL foil in there, and it's also been changed out by someone else because it is completely the wrong size. Way too small, which kind of makes life a bit interesting. So let's get a new one out, which I've got here. So there is a right side and a wrong side to these. The black side is the side which is the side that doesn't light up. This side is the side that does light up. Obviously check it roughly for its size before you put it on. That looks pretty much about right to me. Yeah. So what we're going to have to do is desolder this one. Now in order to do this, you've got those two little tags down there. You need to be careful doing this. What I tend to do is, it doesn't matter so much desoldering the old one, but when you're putting the new one in, you've got to be very careful because these are cold cathode joints, so they're not going to like being heated up for too long, too much. So ideally you want to put some kind of a heat soak on them, but we'll show you how we do that when we do it. At this point in time, what we're going to do is we're going to desolder that with a solder sucker, and we're going to use a knife just to get underneath those to free them off, hopefully. Obviously be careful with the soldering iron, as I said before, because that bezel is actually plastic, so if you get the soldering iron against it, you will melt it. I'm going to have to do this a few times because it's quite a long connection. Right, once you get to that stage, you're going to have to use this and try and get underneath it. So a little bit of heat and then lift it. Once you've got it lifted, just hold it lifted till the solder settles again. Same on this one. Yeah, there it is. Whole thing's moving about on me now, which is typical. So, as always. Okay. Fortunately, solder does go off quite quickly. Now, I'm going to use a knife just to pick this forward. If you've got a pair of tweezers, that would be easier. It's as simple as this. Oh no, it is actually the right size, but somebody's cut the corner off it for some reason or another. It's just slightly bizarre. Never seen that before, but it looks like it has been changed. But there you can see the connections here. They're not the best. Not quite sure why someone's done that, unless they're trying to disable a section of it. Well, I can't see why they would cut a lump out of it like that. Okay, anyhow, it's dead. we don't care about that one. So now what we need to do is obviously make sure that area is clear and clean. And just get a toothbrush in there, give it a little wind around. And then we slide in a new one. It's as simple as this. And you get it down to where you want it. Now, what you may find is that it's not quite lined up on these terminals all that well. Yeah. So, two things I do at this point is I get another screwdriver, so I'll get a flat one. Let's just get a set out. Get a nice big flat one. And what I'll do is I'll hold down that, and this becomes the heat soak at the same time and also stops that from moving about. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to have to load up the soldering iron with solder first, because it's very difficult to hold that down and push this in and feed soldering at the same time. So that basically is going to be held down like that. I'm going to load that up with solder, and then I'm very quickly going to get in there and do that. I'm going to make sure I hold that on there until the heat is gone. As you can see, there's a little bit of an excess there, but we'll trim that off afterwards. Same again here. Just hold it down, load up the soldering iron first. Yeah. Get the solder on. With the heat sink on it, it will literally go off in a second. It won't hesitate. So there you go. They're soldered. It's a little bit of a faff, but it's not a nightmare to do. Okay. You can see that that's all the way down to the other end there, so it's all the way through. So all we need to do now is trim off that excess, because we don't really want that excess flapping around in there, just in case it's going to connect something. So off with that, off with that. You can't short out on anything there. So that is how you change your backlight. Now it's a simple case. Well, I say simple. It's just a case of reassembling all this gently back onto the switchboard, which we'll do now, and then reassembling it all back into the machine. Ready for to use it. So on the front here you'll find you've got the big one, big slot. And here, I better come back a bit. Not watching what I'm doing, am I? Let's come back a bit now. So on the front here you've got a big slot and you've got a small slot. Small slot is where the backlight wiring goes, and the big slot is where the other one goes. Yeah. So the data goes through this one, and the backlight goes through this one. If you're using the original display, obviously make sure the little earth wire goes through there as well. It's very easy to put this display on upside down otherwise, or to trap that cable. Try to be as gentle with them as you can. I have found they're a bit fragile in some respects. Okay. Line the holes up. Pop the screws in. And what I always do, just from personal experience, is I will put all of the screws in loose to start with on anything. Once they're all in and everything's lined up, then I'll tighten them all up. As I there's nothing worse than doing up about 10 screws to find you can't get the last one in because nothing's lined up. So that into there, that into there, that into there, that into there. Nothing needs to be horrendously tight. If you're worried about things coming undone, you can always put a tiny little dab of Loctite on everything. Some of the screws originally did have Loctite on them, these ones didn't, but it wouldn't do any harm. But I wouldn't use a permanent Loctite. I tend to use a very soft Loctite, just a thread lock, not a permanent lock. Okay. Right, what we're going to do is we'll put this back into the machine. Next job is obviously to change out the broken keys, etc., etc., which we'll do next, and then we'll reassemble and we'll fire up and we'll see what happens.